I watched my wife walk into that motel with her boss, and instead of confronting them, I did something they never saw coming. 22 years of marriage, 2 kids, a whole life together, gone in one decision. She spent 7 months tearing the country apart looking for me. When she finally knocked on my door, I handed her an envelope. What was inside destroyed her completely. My name is Craig Lawson. I'm 48 years old, and I've spent the last 23 years operating heavy equipment and running crews on construction sites around Detroit. I'm the kind of guy who wakes up at 5 in the morning, puts in a hard day's work, and comes home with dirt under his fingernails. I'm not fancy. I don't wear suits or sit in boardrooms. I fix things, I build things, and I solve problems with my hands. I married Diane when I was 25, and she was 21. She was working as a receptionist in an insurance office back then, smart as a whip with ambition that could light up a room. We had Connor a year later. Then Hannah came along 4 years after that. 22 years of marriage. 2 kids. A mortgage on a 3-bedroom colonial in Dearborn. The American dream. Right? Wrong. It was a Friday evening in early December when everything started falling apart, though I didn't know it yet. Diane's company was throwing their annual holiday party at the MGM Grand Detroit, one of those fancy casino hotels downtown where everything gleams and nobody looks like they belong to the world I live in. She worked as a senior financial analyst now, had climbed her way up from that receptionist desk through night classes and determination I had always admired. "You coming tonight?" Diane asked that morning, adjusting her earrings in the bathroom mirror. She was already dressed in a dark green dress that probably cost more than my work boots. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, though we both knew I'd rather be anywhere else. These corporate parties weren't my scene, but I went because that's what husbands do. The ballroom was packed when we arrived. Ice sculptures, open bar, a live band playing jazz that sounded like elevator music to my ears. I grabbed a beer and found a spot near the back with some of the other husbands who looked equally out of place. Diane disappeared into the crowd almost immediately, moving between groups like she owned the place. I watched her work the room for about an hour. Then I saw him. Kenneth Hartley, regional vice president, 52 years old, silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of man who never had to raise his voice to get what he wanted. I'd met him once before at last year's party, shook his hand, forgot about him 5 minutes later. But tonight, watching him lean in close to my wife, watching her laugh at something he said with her hand on his forearm, watching the way they looked at each other like they were the only 2 people in the room, that's when the first seed of doubt got planted. "Everything all right?" one of the guys asked me. I took a long pull from my beer. "Yeah, fine." But it wasn't fine. And deep down, standing in that ballroom with the fake snow falling from the ceiling and Christmas lights twinkling everywhere, I knew my life was about to change forever. The drive home from the MGM was quiet. Too quiet. Diane sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone, the glow lighting up her face in the darkness. I kept my eyes on the road, hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. "Good party," I finally said, breaking the silence. Diane glanced up. "Yeah, it was nice. Kenneth really outdid himself this year with the venue." "Kenneth, not Mr. Hartley, not her boss. Kenneth, you two seem to talk a lot tonight," I said, keeping my voice casual. She laughed, but sounded forced. "It's called networking, Craig. That's how you get ahead in corporate America." I nodded, said nothing more. When we got home, Connor was still up playing video games in the basement. Hannah was asleep upstairs. Diane went straight to the bedroom, mumbling something about being exhausted. I stayed downstairs, opened a beer, and sat in the dark living room thinking. The next week passed like usual. I'd leave for the construction site at 5:30 in the morning, spend 10 hours operating excavators and managing my crew, come home covered in dust and diesel fumes. Diane worked her 9 to 5, came home around 6, usually with her laptop open during dinner to finish reports. But something had shifted. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was there. The way she'd smile at her phone when a text came through. The way she'd suddenly started working late on Thursdays. The way she'd become distant during our conversations, like her mind was somewhere else. On Wednesday evening, I came home early. My foreman had sent the crew home because of incoming rain. Diane's car was in the driveway, which surprised me. She usually didn't get home until 6. I walked in through the garage, kicked off my boots in the mudroom. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I could hear Diane's voice coming from upstairs, from our bedroom. She was on the phone. I moved quietly up the stairs, not sneaking exactly, just not announcing myself. I know, Diane was saying, her voice soft, almost intimate. I can't wait either. I stopped outside the bedroom door. Thursday works perfect, she continued. He'll be at the job site until at least 7. We'll have plenty of time. My heart hammered in my chest. Okay, I'll see you then. Bye. I heard her footsteps approaching the door. I moved quickly, heading back downstairs, making noise this time. I slammed the front door like I'd just come in. Craig, Diane called from upstairs. You're home early. Yeah. I called back, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Rain shut us down. She came downstairs a minute later, already changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt, her work clothes nowhere in sight. She smiled at me, kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. How was your day? Diane asked. I looked at my wife of 22 years, the mother of my children, and realized I didn't know her anymore. Fine, I said. Just fine. Thursday came faster than I wanted it to. I woke up at my usual time, 5 in the morning, and went through my routine like clockwork. Shower, coffee, kissed Diane on the forehead while she pretended to still be asleep. But this morning was different. This morning, I had a plan. I told my foreman, Big Mike, that I needed to leave the site early. Family emergency, I said. He didn't ask questions, just clapped me on the shoulder and told me to take care of what I needed to take care of. That's the thing about working with good men. They don't pry. By 3 in the afternoon, I was parked across the street from Diane's office building in downtown Detroit, sitting in my Ford F-250 with a baseball cap pulled low. I felt ridiculous, like some character in a bad movie, but I needed to know. At 4:15, Diane walked out of the building. She wasn't alone. Kenneth Hartley was beside her, his hand on her lower back as they walked to the parking garage. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might split. I followed them, kept 3 cars back, stayed casual. They didn't head toward our house. Instead, they took I-94 west, heading out of the city. About 40 minutes later, they pulled into a Hampton Inn in Ann Arbor. I parked at the far end of the lot and watched. Kenneth went into the lobby first. 5 minutes later, Diane followed. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. I sat there for 10 minutes, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I could have stormed in there, could have made a scene, dragged Kenneth out by his expensive tie, confronted Diane in front of everyone. But that's not who I am. I'm methodical. I think things through. I pulled out my phone and took pictures. The motel sign, Diane's car, Kenneth's black Lexus with the vanity plates. Then I opened the glove box and grabbed the small digital camera I'd bought 2 days ago. I waited. An hour passed. Then another. The sun was setting when I saw movement. A curtain on the second floor pulled back, and there was Diane, silhouetted against the window. She was laughing, her head thrown back. A man's hand appeared on her shoulder. I took the photo. Then another. And another. By the time they came out separately, Kenneth first, then Diane 20 minutes later, I had everything I needed. She got in her car, checked her makeup in the mirror, and drove off like she just finished a normal day at the office. I didn't follow her home. Instead, I sat in that parking lot until it was full dark, staring at those photos on the camera screen. 22 years. 2 kids. A life we built together. All of it gone. I got home around 9 that night. Diane was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. She smiled when I walked in, like she hadn't spent the afternoon in a motel with her boss. There you are, Diane said. I was starting to worry. Long day. Yeah, I said, setting my keys on the counter. Equipment breakdown. Had to stay late. Well, dinner's almost ready. Hannah's upstairs doing homework, and Connor's at basketball practice. You should be home soon. I watched her move around the kitchen, so comfortable in her lies. Part of me wanted to throw the camera on the counter, show her the evidence, watch her try to explain it away. But I didn't. Not yet. How was your day? I asked instead. Oh, same old office stuff. Boring meetings, tedious reports. She didn't even flinch. We ate dinner in silence when Connor got home. Hannah talked about her history project. Connor complained about his coach. Diane laughed at all the right moments, asked all the right questions. She was good at this, I realized. Really good. That night, after everyone was asleep, I went down to my workshop in the basement. I plugged the camera into my laptop and uploaded the photos. There they were, undeniable proof. The motel, the cars, Diane in the window. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. I thought about Connor. who'd be heading to college next fall. I thought about Hannah, only 14, still needing her dad. I thought about the house, the mortgage, the life we'd built. And I thought about what I was going to do next. I couldn't confront Diane. Not yet. If I did, she'd cry. She'd apologize. She'd promise it meant nothing. And maybe I'd be stupid enough to believe her. Or maybe we'd fight, get a messy divorce, and spend the next 10 years battling over custody and money while our kids suffered. No, I needed a different plan. I opened a browser and started searching. Jobs in other states. Places where a heavy equipment operator with 20 years of experience could start fresh. Tennessee caught my eye. Kentucky. Ohio. Places far enough away that I could disappear completely. By the time I went upstairs, it was past 2 in the morning. Diane was asleep, or pretending to be. I stood in the doorway of Hannah's room, watching her sleep. Then Connor's. My kids. My family. I was going to lose them. But on my terms, not hers. The next 2 weeks moved like clockwork. Every morning I woke up, kissed Diane goodbye, and headed to the construction site. But during lunch breaks, I was making calls. I landed a job offer from a construction company outside Knoxville, Tennessee. The pay was decent, and they needed someone who could run heavy equipment and manage crews. I accepted without hesitation. Finding a place to live was easier than I expected. A small 2-bedroom apartment in a complex near the job site. Nothing fancy, but it had everything I needed. I signed the lease electronically, paid the deposit from my personal account, and scheduled my move-in date for 3 weeks out. The hard part was packing without Diane noticing. I started small. A few shirts here, a pair of boots there. I'd take them to work in a duffel bag and store them in my truck's lockbox. My important documents, birth certificate, passport, social security card, went into a manila envelope that stayed hidden under my truck's back seat. The bank accounts were trickier. I couldn't just drain our joint savings without raising red flags. So I started moving money gradually. 1,000 here, 1,500 there. Small enough amounts that Diane wouldn't notice in the regular flow of bills and expenses. I opened a new account at a different bank under just my name and funneled everything there. By the end of the second week, I had about $28,000 secured. Connor was the wild card. He'd always been sharp, more observant than Hannah. One Saturday morning, he caught me loading boxes into my truck. "What's all that, Dad?" Connor asked, standing in the driveway with his basketball under one arm. "Just some old tools I'm donating," I said, keeping my voice casual. He looked at the boxes, then at me. Something passed behind his eyes, like he knew I was lying but didn't want to call me on it. "You okay, Dad?" Connor asked quietly. I wanted to tell him everything right then. About his mother, about Kenneth, about what I'd seen. But he was 18, about to graduate high school, with college applications pending. He didn't need this weight on his shoulders. "I'm fine, son," I said, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Just doing some cleaning out. You know how it is." Connor nodded slowly, but I could tell he wasn't convinced. "If you ever need to talk about anything." "I know," I said. "Same goes for you." He went back inside, and I finished loading the truck. That night, I lay awake thinking about Connor's question. Was I okay? No, but I would be. 3 days before I planned to leave, Diane came home with news. She was bouncing on her feet, practically glowing. "Kenneth's sending me to a conference," Diane said, setting her purse down. "Chicago, next weekend. It's a big deal, lots of networking opportunities." "That's great." I set my voice flat. "It's Friday through Sunday. Will you be okay with the kids?" I looked at my wife, so excited about her lie, and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, just emptiness. "We'll be fine," I said. Perfect. She'd be gone when I disappeared. One less thing to worry about. The morning I left was a Tuesday. I woke up before dawn, same as always. Diane was still asleep, her back to me, breathing steady. I got dressed quietly, grabbed my phone, and headed downstairs. Connor was already up, eating cereal in the kitchen. He looked up when I walked in, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. "You're leaving, aren't you?" Connor said finally, his voice low. I froze. "What makes you say that?" "Come on, Dad. I'm not stupid. You've been different for weeks. Distant. And I've seen you packing things." I sat down across from him. This wasn't how I wanted this conversation to go, but maybe it was better this way. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I'm leaving." Connor set his spoon down. "Because of Mom." It wasn't a question. He knew. Maybe not all the details, but enough. "Listen to me," I said, leaning forward. This has nothing to do with you or Hannah. You understand that. You two are the best things that ever happened to me. Then why are you leaving us? His voice split, and I could see tears starting to form. I'm not leaving you. I'm leaving her. And I need to do it this way because if I fight this out in court, it's going to get ugly. Really ugly. And you and Hannah will be caught in the middle. Connor wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Where are you going? Tennessee. I've got a job lined up, a place to stay. And when you turn 18 in 3 months, if you want to come find me, I'll tell you exactly where I am. 3 months, Connor repeated. You're almost an adult. Legally, you can make your own choices then. But until that day, I need you to do something for me. Take care of your sister. Don't tell her where I went. Don't tell your mother. Just be there for Hannah. Connor stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay. I pulled out my wallet and handed him a folded piece of paper. That's a phone number. It's a prepaid cell. In 3 months, call it. I'll answer. He took the paper, held it like it was something precious. I love you, son, I said, standing up. I love you too, Dad. I wanted to hug him, but I couldn't. If I did, I might not be able to leave. So I just put my hand on his shoulder, squeezed once, then walked out the door. My truck was already packed. Everything important was in there. Clothes, documents, money, tools. I didn't look back at the house as I pulled out of the driveway. I couldn't. The drive to Knoxville took about 10 hours. I stopped once for gas and coffee, then kept moving. By the time I crossed the Tennessee state line, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. My phone buzzed once. A text from Diane. Where are you? Connor said you left early. I turned the phone off and threw it out the window of the next rest stop. I was free. Knoxville was nothing like Detroit. The city sprawled across rolling hills, green even in late winter, with the Smoky Mountains visible in the distance on clear days. The pace was slower here, the people friendlier. Nobody knew me, and that was exactly what I needed. My apartment was basic, a small living room, 1 bedroom, a kitchen with outdated appliances. But it was mine. No memories, no ghosts. I spent the first weekend setting up what little I brought. A mattress on the floor, a card table and folding chair for eating, a lamp. That was it. The job started Monday morning. The construction company, Volunteer Builders, ran commercial projects across East Tennessee. I'd be operating excavators and loaders, same work I'd done for 20 years. The crew was smaller than what I was used to, maybe 15 guys total, but they seemed solid. Craig Lawson, right? The foreman, a man named Earl, extended his hand. He was in his 60s, weathered face, strong grip. Heard good things about your experience up in Michigan. Yes, sir, I said, shaking his hand. Happy to be here. We're in a tight ship, but we take care of our people. You do right by us, we'll do right by you. The work was hard and honest, exactly what I needed. For 10 hours a day, I could focus on moving earth, grading sites, operating machinery. The physical exhaustion kept my mind from wandering too much. When I got home each night, I'd shower, eat something simple, and fall asleep before 9. But the nights were the hardest. In the silence of my empty apartment, I'd think about Connor and Hannah, wonder how they were doing, whether Diane had come home yet, whether she'd even noticed I was gone. 2 weeks after I left, I bought a cheap burner phone and checked my old email account from a library computer. There were 17 messages from Diane. The first few were confused. Where are you? Call me. Then they turned angry. How could you just leave? What about your children? By the end, they were desperate. Please, just let me know you're alive. I deleted them all without responding. There was also one from Connor, sent from his school email. Dad, Mom's losing it. She filed a missing person report. Called your parents. Called Uncle Mike. Nobody knows where you are. Hannah keeps asking about you. I told her you had to go away for work, like you said. She cries every night. Mom hired a private investigator. Be careful. Love, Connor. I read it 3 times, then deleted it too. I couldn't respond. Not yet. If I did, they might trace it somehow. I had to stay disappeared. At the construction site, I kept to myself mostly. Ate lunch alone in my truck. Didn't join the guys for beers after work. But Earl noticed. You running from something? Earl asked one afternoon, leaning against my excavator during a break. I looked at him, surprised by the directness. What makes you say that? Been doing this work for 40 years. Seen plenty of men show up in new cities, No family. No friends. Working like they're trying to forget something. You got that look. I didn't answer right away. Finally, I said, just needed a fresh start. Earl nodded slowly. Fair enough. But let me tell you something, son. Whatever you're running from, eventually it catches up. Always does. Question is whether you're ready when it does. He walked away before I could respond. That night, lying on my mattress staring at the ceiling, I thought about his words. Was I running? Or was I finally standing my ground in the only way that made sense? I didn't have an answer. Diane came home from her conference in Chicago on a Sunday evening, pulling into the driveway around 7. The house was dark except for the porch light. She'd texted Connor earlier. No response. She tried calling me a dozen times, straight to voicemail. Something was wrong. She unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Hello, Craig? Kids. Connor appeared at the top of the stairs. Mom, where's your father? Diane asked, setting down her suitcase. He's not here, Connor said flatly. What do you mean he's not here? Where is he? I don't know. Diane's heart started racing. She pushed past Connor and went to our bedroom. The closet, half empty. His side of the dresser, drawers open, clothes gone. The bathroom, his toothbrush, razor, cologne, all missing. Connor, she yelled, running back downstairs. Where is your father? Connor was in the kitchen now, making a sandwich like nothing was wrong. I told you. I don't know. When did he leave? Tuesday morning. Before school. Tuesday? That was 5 days ago. And you didn't think to tell me? Connor looked at her with an expression that made her stomach drop. It wasn't confusion or worry. It was something else. Something cold. He said he needed to go. Connor said simply, Go where? He didn't say. Diane grabbed her phone and called me again. Nothing. She called my parents in Cincinnati. Helen, it's Diane. Is Craig there? My mother's voice was cool. No, Diane. He's not. Do you know where he is? He's not answering his phone. And Connor says he left 5 days ago. If Craig left, Diane, I imagine he had his reasons. The line went dead. Diane stood in the kitchen, phone in her shaking hand, and realized what was happening. I knew. Somehow, I knew about Kenneth. And I'd left without a word. She spent the next 3 days frantically searching. She called my work. They said I quit 2 weeks ago, said I was moving out of state, but didn't say where. She called every friend I had. Nobody knew anything. Or if they did, they weren't telling her. She filed a missing person report with the Dearborn police. 2 officers came to the house, asked questions, looked around. Ma'am, did your husband take any of his belongings? The older officer asked. Yes, but did he empty any bank accounts? Diane checked. Our joint savings was nearly $20,000 lighter. Small withdrawals over several weeks that she'd never noticed. Some money is missing, Diane admitted quietly. The officers exchanged a glance. Ma'am, this doesn't sound like a missing person. This sounds like your husband left voluntarily. But he wouldn't just leave his family. People do it all the time, the younger officer said, not unkindly. Usually for a reason. After they left, Diane sat on the couch and broke down. Hannah came downstairs, saw her mother crying, and asked a question Diane couldn't answer. Mommy, where's Daddy? Diane pulled her daughter close. I don't know, sweetie. I don't know. But deep down, she did know. I found out. And I was gone. 7 months. That's how long it took her to find me. 7 months of hiring investigators, calling old contacts, probably spending thousands of dollars tracking down leads. And when Diane finally knocked on my apartment door on a humid Saturday afternoon in October, I knew exactly what I was going to give her. The truth. I'd just gotten home from a job site, still wearing my work boots and dusty jeans. The knock was soft at first, almost hesitant. I looked through the peephole, and there she was, Diane, standing in the hallway of my apartment building in Knoxville, looking nothing like the confident woman I'd left behind in December. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and a plain gray t-shirt, no makeup that I could see. Her eyes were red and puffy, like she'd been crying the whole drive here. She looked exhausted. I opened the door, but didn't step aside to let her in. Craig, Diane breathed, her voice breaking on my name. How did you find me? I asked, my voice flat. Does it matter? She took a shaky step forward. Can we talk? Talk, I said, not moving from the doorway. Please, not out here. Can I come in? I considered it for a moment, then stepped back. She walked into my small apartment, looking around at the sparse furniture, the basic setup. No family photos on the walls. No traces of our life together. "You've been here this whole time?" Diane asked, turned to face me. "I've been somewhere this whole time," I said. "What do you want, Diane?" "I want—" She stopped, her hands twisting together nervously. "I want to explain." "Explain what?" "Kenneth Hartley? The Hampton Inn in Ann Arbor? The Thursday afternoon meetings that weren't meetings." Her face went pale. "You knew." "I knew," I said coldly. "I followed you that Thursday in December. Watched you walk into that motel with him. Took pictures." Diane's legs seemed to give out. She sat down hard on my cheap couch, her hands covering her face. "Oh God, how long?" I asked, even though I didn't really want to know. "6 months," she whispered. "It started last summer at a work retreat. I never meant for it to happen, Craig. I swear I didn't." "But it did happen," I interrupted. "And you kept it happening. For 6 months, you lied to me. To Connor. To Hannah. You looked me in the eye every single day and lied." "I know," she sobbed. "I know, and I'm so sorry. It was a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through it." "No," I said simply. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "What?" "No, we're not fixing anything. There's nothing left to fix. Craig, please. 22 years. Our children. Our home. You can't just throw all of that away." "I didn't throw it away," I said, my voice rising for the first time. "You did. The moment you decided Kenneth Hartley was worth more than our marriage, you threw it away. I just had the self-respect to walk away from what was left." Diane stood up, reaching for me. "Please, just give me another chance. I ended it with Kenneth. I haven't seen him since he left. I quit my job. I'll do whatever it takes." I stepped back, away from her touch. "You ended it because you got caught. Because I disappeared and you panicked. Not because you suddenly grew a conscience. That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about fair? How about Connor? He knew, Diane. He heard you on the phone with Kenneth. An 18-year-old kid had to carry that weight because his mother couldn't keep her vows." Her face split with fresh tears. "Connor knew. Yeah, and he had to watch his mother fall apart. Watch his sister cry every night asking where Daddy went. All because you couldn't be honest." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I walked to the small table by the door and picked up an envelope I'd prepared weeks ago, knowing this day would come. Inside was a single photograph, the one I'd taken of her and Kenneth outside that motel, his hand on her waist. And beneath it, my wedding ring. I held out to her. "Here." Diane took it with shaking hands, opened the envelope, and broke down completely when she saw the contents. "The divorce papers will be in the mail next week," I said. "You can keep the house." "I don't want it. I just want joint custody of Hannah until she's 18. Connor's already an adult. He can make his own choices." "Craig, please. You need to leave now, Diane." She stood there for a moment, clutching that envelope like it was the last piece of us. Then she looked at me one more time, searching my face for something, forgiveness, maybe, or hope. She wouldn't find it. "I love you," Diane whispered. "No, you don't," I said. "You love the idea of me, the stability I provided, the life we had, but you didn't love me enough to stay faithful. And I don't love you enough to pretend that's okay." I opened the door and waited. Finally, she walked past me into the hallway, her footsteps slow and heavy. I watched her walk toward the stairs, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Then I closed the door and locked it. The divorce was finalized 3 months later, just after New Year's. Diane didn't fight it. She signed everything, agreed to joint custody, even agreed to pay part of Hannah's expenses since I'd taken a pay cut moving to Tennessee. Kenneth Hartley, I heard through Connor, had been quietly demoted at his company when rumors of the affair spread through the office. His wife divorced him too. Connor called me in January, right after his 18th birthday. "Dad," he said when I answered the prepaid phone, "can I come visit?" "Anytime, son," I said. "You know where I am now." He drove down from Michigan 2 weeks later in the old Jeep I'd helped him buy before I left. When I saw him pull into the parking lot, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, genuine happiness. We spent the weekend together, just talking. About his plans for college, about Hannah, about his mother. He told me Diane was seeing a therapist, trying to work through everything. He told me Hannah was doing better, but still missed me terribly. "She wants to see you," Connor said. "I want to see her too." We'll figure it out. On his last night in Knoxville, Connor and I sat on my apartment balcony, watching the city lights. Are you happy here, Dad? He asked. I thought about it. Was I happy? I had a good job, a simple life, no drama. But I miss my kids every day. I miss the life I thought I had. I'm at peace, I said finally. And right now, that's enough. Connor nodded. I'm proud of you. For leaving. For standing up for yourself. A lot of guys would have stayed and been miserable. Maybe, I said, but I'm not built that way. Neither am I, Connor said. You taught me that. After he left, I sat on that balcony for a long time. Earl had been right. What you run from catches up eventually. But when it did, I'd been ready. I'd faced Diane, told her the truth, and walked away on my own terms. Hannah came to visit in March for spring break. She was 15 now, taller than I remembered, but still my little girl. She cried when she saw me, and I held her tight, promising I'd never disappear like that again. I'm sorry, baby girl, I said. I'm sorry I left the way I did. Mom explained everything, Hannah said. I understand why you had to go. We spent the week exploring Knoxville, hiking in the Smokies, eating barbecue, just being father and daughter. By the time I drove her to the airport, I knew we were going to be okay. I never spoke to Diane again after that day in October. We communicated through lawyers and email about Hannah's schedule. Nothing more. I heard she started dating someone new, another corporate guy. I hoped he treated her better than Kenneth had. I hoped she learned something from all this. As for me, I stayed in Knoxville. Built a life here. Earl retired, and I took over as foreman. Made some friends, finally. Started dating someone eventually, a woman named Rachel who worked at the diner I've been going to. Nothing serious yet, but it was nice to feel something again. Connor graduated college and got a job in Nashville, only 2 hours away. He visits every other weekend. Hannah comes down for holidays and summer breaks. We video chat twice a week. I'm not the man I was in Detroit. That version of me died when I saw those photos on my camera screen. But the man I became, the one who had the strength to walk away, to rebuild, to stand on his own, he's someone I can respect. And in the end, that's all that matters.